Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. Om Agyan Tivanandasya Gyananjana Sulakaya Chaksuramilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapita Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Yadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Lagana Raganatam Vidam Tam Sadivam Sadvaitam Shkavadutam Vrina Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Lagana Lalita Eva Sakam Zikam Shah Hey Krishna Harna Sindhu Yamanda Gadate Gopesha Gopikanda Radha Kanda Namaste Dr. Kanchana Gaurani Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Krishna Namaste Devi Rama Priya Vanchakapa Tujyasya Krishna Sindhu Vyavacha Padivaham Bhavaneyo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Jai Radha Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Let's read from the Bhagavad-gita as it is, chapter 18. Slide up here. Chapter 18, text number 57. Perfection of renunciation. Chetasa sarva karmani vai sannyasi matraha Uryogam Bhashritya Masvitat Saratam Bhava. In all activities depend upon me, work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. Please repeat, in all activities.
All activities.
Depend upon me.
Just depend upon me.
And work always under my protection.
And work always under my protection.
In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me.
Be fully conscious of me.
Prabhupada's purport. When one acts in Krishna consciousness, he does not act like a master of the world. Just like a servant, one should fully act under the direction of the Supreme Lord. The servant has no individual independence. He only acts in the order of the master. Servant acting on behalf of the Supreme Master is unaffected by profit and loss. He simply discharges his duty faithfully in terms of the order of the Lord. Now one may argue that Arjuna is acting under the personal direction of Krishna. When Krishna is not present, how should one act? If one acts according to the direction of Krishna in this book, as well as under the direction of the representative of Krishna, then the result will be the same. The Sanskrit word Maharaja is very important in this verse. When you have no goal in life, save and accept acting Krishna consciousness just to satisfy Krishna. While acting in such a way, one should think of Krishna only. I have been appointed to discharge this particular duty by Krishna. That is perfect Krishna consciousness. This is perfect Krishna consciousness. Oh. While acting in such a way, one will naturally think of Krishna, has to think of Krishna. This is perfect Krishna consciousness. One should, however, note that after doing something whimsically, one should not offer the result to the Supreme Lord. That sort of duty is not in the devotional service of Krishna consciousness. One should act according to the order of Krishna. This is a very important point. That order of Krishna comes down through the simple succession of a bona fide spiritual master. If the spiritual master's order should be taken as the prime duty of life, one gets a bona fide spiritual master and acts according to his direction, and one's perfection of life and Krishna consciousness is guaranteed. So the verse again, Chaitasa sarva karmani maya sannyasi matraha uryogam vachita saratam bhava. And all activities depend upon me, work always under my protection, in such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Srimati Bhakti-vedanta Swami Namaste Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Krishna Nirvishesha Shinvadi Askadhyade. In all the verses in Bhagavad-gita, there are different aspects of advancing towards Krishna consciousness. The verse is called Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga means that one has to understand and accept how everyone and everything here belongs to Krishna. Now, for some people, they don't know Krishna, and therefore, to say that everything belongs to Krishna doesn't make any sense to people, because they, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita, that Pravatim cha nivritim cha jana navido asura yasocham napichaptaro nasatyam teshu vidyate. In general, people don't know what's to be done and what's not to be done, because the basic principle is wrong. Basic principle is this misidentification with this gross and subtle material body. Therefore, the idea is that if we don't know we're a spirit soul and we think we're this body, then naturally all our activities are going to be based upon the Bali concept of life. And the Bali concept of life, everyone is trying to figure out what's to be done and what's not to be done, what will bring us happiness and what will bring us distress. But people don't know exactly what's to be done and what's not to be done. Even they go to a football game to find happiness. Their happiness is based on whether their team is going to win or not. And no one knows if their team is going to win unless it was fixed as a matter. And therefore they're gambling that maybe my team will win and I'll feel happy. And maybe my team will lose and I'll feel distressed. Even in South America, over a football match, 2 countries had a war. That's how much distress the losing team was in. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had accepted when Ramananda Roy was trying to explain how to reach the perfection of life in this age. And Ramananda Roy gave the quote from Lord Brahma, Gyane Priyasam Udapastanamanta Eva Vivanti Samukaritam Bhaviyavartam Stane Sthita Shritigatam Dhanavam Manovir Ye Priyasa Jita Jito Taishtrilokyam. He said the first thing is Gyane Priyasam. Gyane Priyasam. Give up the tendency to speculate. And what is our tendency to speculate? We're always trying to figure out what's going to make us happy in the material world, which will make us unhappy. Just like everyone was looking forward in at least a certain religion, or maybe, I guess there's Christmas is a time of holiday. People, I don't think, necessarily equate it with anything religious anymore. But they get a day off, and that's their religion. You get a day off. In any case, so much advertisement, and because nowadays people become a little tired of it, so they have Black Friday, Green Monday, Pink Thursday, with half price, because you never see that the week before they double the price. And then the day Black Friday, they half it again, back to normal price. But everyone is hoping this time they're going to have something I can buy at half price, and I'm going to be happy for the whole weekend. And as they have in America, they had a bumper sign. Bumper, they have these bumper stickers on the cars, you put it on the bumper. It says, whoever gets the most toys at the end of life wins. In other words, if you have more, then you have more happiness. Because if you have one car, then you have to take care of it. You have to put oil in it, you have to clean it, you have to get insurance for it, you have to pay for it, you have to put it in the garage in case there's a hailstorm or whatever. So you're in anxiety over this car. So this identification with the car in Sanskrit is, the definition in Sanskrit is called ahamkar. I am the car. And if you have two cars, then you're twice as in anxiety. So the more you have, the more you have to lose. And therefore there's more anxiety. Just like when I was in India, I was attending these classes at, there's someone called B.K.S. Iyengar. So some of the devotees friends of mine were attending some of his classes for a month. And every day we'd walk from where we were staying to where his shala is, where they were teaching yoga. And on the way we'd pass by these people who were homeless, sleeping on the street. And they were sleeping quite peacefully, much more peacefully than I could sleep. Because they had nothing to worry about. Because they had nothing to lose. So as soon as we get something, we have so much to lose. I'm sure at the time of leaving their body, they have nothing to think about. Hopefully they're thinking about Krishna, but there's no big distraction because they're not losing anything. But if we have to leave our body, then we have to think, oh, can I take my bank balance with me? Whatever. And therefore, we're always in anxiety about what's going to happen. I think I told that story before. That man, he heard that if you give a donation to the church, then you guaranteed to go to heaven. You heard that story before? So he's a miserly person. He never gave any donations to anyone. Not very pious either. But he wanted to go to heaven, so he went to the church and gave $5 as a donation, and demanded a receipt from the priest. But the priest said, "For $5, we never give a receipt." He said, "No, you must give me a receipt." Anyhow, the priest, he figured, let me get rid of this person. And he gave him a receipt for $5. So he was so convinced that if he had this receipt, when he's being judged, that everything would be all right. So even at the time of death, he clutched onto the receipt and was able to take it with him. So when he was going through the pearly gate, when he was being judged by Peter for the book of life, he came up to Peter after a big line. He finally arrived there, and Peter looked into the book and said, "You've been really sinful and miserly." He said, "You should go to hell." There's no way. He said, I gave a donation to the church. They guaranteed he's your representative, here's my receipt. I was supposed to go to heaven. Peter said, "No, the book says you're supposed to." So there's a big argument going on. The whole line was backed up. So God was looking out the window trying to figure out what was going on, why the line is so, why no one's moving. So he found Peter arguing with this man. So God took Peter off to the side. He said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Well, this man, he gave a donation of $5, and he said, according to the church, he would be guaranteed to go to heaven. But he was very sinful according to the book. I can't allow him to go to heaven. So God said, all right, I can solve it. So God took out his wallet and gave Peter $5 and told him, give him back the $5 and tell him to go to hell. So people are thinking, somehow or another, if I just do something pious or whatever, or I pay off the church, then I'm guaranteed to get a good existence. Doesn't matter what I do, somehow or another, I can buy my way back to heaven. But actually, Gyane Priyasam Udapasa Namandeva. Gyane we have to give up the tendency towards speculation, thinking that the material world is moving under my direction. And I can do whatever I want. And if I simply, do something pious according to whatever the estimation is, then everything's going to be all right. But one has to actually find out what is pravitim cha, navritim cha, jana navido asura, the sochim napichachara, the satyam tesu vidyate. People are not clean in their consciousness. I mean, even the religious people, so-called religious nowadays, the only principle they follow 3 of the 4 of the principles. And sometimes the devotees, when they take initiation, they also want to follow only 3 principles. Namely, no meat, no fish, and no eggs. They follow these 3 principles. But actually, according to our activities, what we do, that's where our destination is. Krishna says, Antakale yam yam bhapi smaran bhavan kyajanta antakale vram tam tam eva ikundiya sada tad bhava bhavita. Whatever we think about the time of death, that's the destination we're going to obtain. The problem is, unless we think about Krishna at the time of death in a positive way, then we're going to come back somewhere in the material world again. I mean, hopefully that we've been making progress towards thinking about Krishna in devotion, but unless we make progress towards thinking about Krishna in devotion, then we may come back anywhere in the universe and face the same disadvantages of birth, death, old age, and disease. We may think we're making progress, but progress towards what? Therefore, Krishna says, Asatyam apratishtam te jagara varanishwaram aparashwaram sabhutyam kimanya kamahaituka. They say that the world is unreal. That's our problem, is that we've grown up in a society, even in India nowadays, where people don't believe that there's such a thing as Krishna. They don't think there's such a thing as the spiritual world. They don't really believe that the goal of life is to get out of the material concept of life and to come back to our original spiritual identity. Because we've been so much overwhelmed by this so-called science that in the beginning there was nothing, and somehow it turned into everything. It's about it on the same level as listening to the sound of one hand clapping. Have anyone ever heard of the sound of one hand clapping? Has anyone ever seen anything come out of nothing? And yet what is considered completely fictitious, not very logical, the other one said, oh, that's science. I must accept that, or else I'm primitive. Then in the beginning there was nothing, and then nothing got bored. And Mother Nothing said, why don't you make something out of yourself? You're an embarrassment. You're good for nothing. So nothing became very disturbed, and he tried real hard to make something out of himself, but because he was actually good for nothing, it was very difficult. But finally he got inspired and he made something out of himself, but it was just a little bit of gas. And Mother Nothing said, "You stink." So after all that effort, Nothing got very angry and exploded and flew everywhere for millions of years. And then Mother Nothing said, "Well, why don't you just settle down?" So now we settled down, and here we are now. Completely logical, scientific. I should win the Nobel Prize for saying it. So it's completely illogical, has no basis of reality, but that's what people think. People think that according to the so-called science, that if we look at our family book, people have family books where they have their whole ancestry. So according to that, we should turn the page and we should find grandfather, grandmother, great-grandfather, great-grandmother. You know, he was a military man, my great-great-grandmother was a cook. We turn the page, and finally we see this very strange-looking great-great-great-grandfather, and he's covered with hair. He has one hand on a tree with a big smile, and that's Grandfather Harry and Grandmother Lucy. And we turn the page, and it gets stranger and stranger, and then finally we see this sheep. It's a black sheep. And finally we see the black sheep in our family that everyone talks about. And then we turn the page, and there's a mouse. Great-grandfather Squeaky. Some people say he's a rat. And then we turn the page, and finally we come to a rock. And underneath it says, "The most solid member of our family." And then we turn the page, and there's nothing. Well, but that's our ancestor, so we feel sorry that he was nothing. But somehow he worked hard, he became something. And that's why we're something. Otherwise, there's not much to say about our real family life, our history, because it came out of nothing. So this is called science, because we say it's science fiction. But they say that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is science fiction, that there's no controller, that it's all by accident, that the sun rises at a certain time, and that the sun goes down at a certain time. It's all by accident. But the scientists, if it was all by accident, that the sun has just come out of nothing and is just perfectly in an orbit, along with all the other planets, well, why don't the scientists make a little tiny sun, and they can put it over the North Pole and help out the Eskimos? If they think everything came out of nothing, then surely with all the ability that they have, and all the science they have, and all the means at their disposal, surely they can make a little tiny sun, and we can replace it, one of these light bulbs here. It saves so much electricity. And we can allow it just to circulate in the room and heat it up. We don't have to turn on anything. At a certain time of the day, it comes over here and lights up the room, and then it goes over there and lights up the other part of the room. But the sun, they can't even make a sun the size of a thimble. And what to speak of being perfectly in orbit. If the scientists can make a male machine and a female machine, and when they get together make little machines, that would be very nice, wouldn't it? They can make a male's Rolls Royce and a female's Rolls Royce, and when they get together we get little Rolls Royces. And then we just feed a little oil and gas, and it grows up, and everyone gets a Rolls Royce. But they can't do that. As I said before, they can't even make a machine that you put grass on one end, and the other end you get milk. But Krishna has made that machine. Everyone knows what that machine is, right? What's that machine? Cow. But they don't give the cow the Nobel Prize. Instead, unfortunately, they don't appreciate the value of the cow. So the scientists say everything came out of nothing. It was all an accident. But if you go on the street and two cars collide with each other, and the police come and they say, "What happened?" And they said, "Don't worry about it. It was just an accident. You don't have to worry about it. It's just there was no cause. It was an accident." An accident must have a cause. But the scientists say like that. But if everything was an accident, then why don't the scientists stay at home, and by accident they'll get rich? By accident they'll get their PhD degree. The whole universe has come about by accident. Then why don't they just get their PhD by accident? Just like Sir Isaac Newton built a model of the universe, and all the in this model the planets moved in an orbit. So his friend came in, another scientist, and said, "Sir Isaac Newton, who's made this wonderful model of the universe?" And Sir Isaac Newton said, "I don't know. I just walked in here and it was just here. I walked in, there was nothing here. Suddenly heard this bang, and out of nowhere these things fell into pieces, fell into this model. Just came out of nothing." So his friend said, "Well, you're hallucinating." He said, No. It's a fact. I walk in here, there was nothing. Suddenly I heard this bang, and out of nowhere all these pieces came and fell exactly into this model. He said, "Come on, that's not possible." But according to you, that's how the whole universe came about. So why can't this little model come about? The whole universe came about like that. So the point is, unless we understand that there is a supreme person behind this universe, then how are we going to understand that this is a spiritual universe? If we can't see that God is right before us, controlling our everyday life in a universe that didn't come about by accident, that nothing's coming about by accident. Everyone is doing exactly what they've been told to do. Everyone has their leader, everyone has their authority, and everyone is doing what their authorities are telling to do. And that's how things are coming about. So suddenly the universe has come about because there's a supreme person telling other people what to do here to bring it about. Now the question is, who is our authority? Who are we following? What is our objective? What is their objective? If the objective is not to realize that we're eternal, and that to realize that there's a person who's directing us and directing everyone, and fulfilling all our desires according to what we want to achieve in this universe, if we don't understand that those goals are practically insignificant, because what are we going to achieve? If we don't realize we're eternal, then what are we going to achieve here? What more do we want? To at least realize we're eternal. If we realize we're eternal, then we're better than any superhero. They have all these movies about superheroes nowadays, but they always have to have a villain who's stronger than a superhero, who threatens a superhero. Otherwise, it's boring. A superhero always wins. Therefore, people wouldn't go and watch the movie to find out this rooting for the villain. Maybe this time the superhero. Finally, they're going to get rid of the superhero. But actually, all of us were much better than any superhero because we're eternal. Nothing can touch us. No, we can't be cut by pieces by any weapon, or burned by fire, no moistened by water, no withered by the wind. We're super duper heroes. But people don't realize that they're trying to imitate some other hero who's insignificant compared to the ultimate hero, which was Krishna. Therefore, the conclusion is, unless we understand what the goal of life is and how to achieve it, and Krishna says, first of all, just understand what's going on here, that it's actually under Krishna's control, and therefore, if we follow his directions, we'll realize we're eternal. We'll realize our eternal relation with him, and when we do that, then we can actually say here in Australia, no worries, Mike. Then we'll actually believe it. Or on the American dollar they have, in God we trust. But no one trusts the American dollar anymore. Because they don't trust in God. Therefore, who trusts in them? So we follow Krishna's directions as he's given in this Bhagavad-gita. Because it's not sentiment, it's a reality. We're eternal. The universe is under control of a supreme being. He's controlling us and directing us. And there is a person who is the ultimate goal of life. And when we get to know him, we'll find out how nice he is. And therefore, instead of worrying about what's happening, we'll understand everything he's doing is for everyone's benefit. And the benefit he's trying to give everyone is they give us the opportunity to become conscious of him again. And we become conscious of him, then all the problems of material existence will fade away, just like when we wake up from a bad dream, all the problems of the dream just go away. So there's this huge virtual reality Krishna's created, and we're believing it's real, but actually, although it has substance to it, but it's just a big show going on, full of sound and fury and signifying nothing. Just like the Himalayas, they were giving birth to something, and there's this Mount Everest and all the other big mountains were shaking, and all the forest animals came to see what was happening, what the Himalayas were going to give birth to. There's rumbling and so much noise going on, and suddenly the Himalayas gave birth, and a mouse ran out. So all this big drama that's going on, it's all just a big show of nothing. That the real thing is, if we make some progress towards realizing our relation with Krishna, that's actually significant. That's worthy of the news. Everything else is just the changing in the material modes of nature, the changing in the material nature, and ultimately nothing really of any significance is going on. It's all just a big illusion. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so merciful. He's given us this opportunity just to chant Hare Krishna. And by chanting Hare Krishna, then we get buddhi, we get intelligence to see what's actually going on here, and what's valuable, what's not valuable, so we can choose things that are valuable. And when we choose things that are valuable, and we realize how everyone is eternal, everyone should realize their eternality. Everyone is being guided by Super Alma, by Krishna, the Super Soul, Paramatma, trying to guide us back to Krishna so we can actually be eternally happy and do something significant, love Krishna, increase Krishna's bliss and pleasure, and therefore increase everyone's bliss and pleasure eternally. That's actually productive, producing more and more consciousness of love and bliss and pleasure for everyone eternally. That's a good production. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? A moment of silence. Okay, we'll stop there. Thank you very much. Grandharaj Bhagavad-gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande.